What is going on, everybody? Welcome to the BizDad recap episode on kids in business. So please take a listen to this episode. We've got a bunch of different advice for involving your kids in business, or maybe your kids starting their own business. I'm really excited to share this recap episode with you. If you hear something, jump back to the full episode. Listen to the full episode. Take some good notes. Subscribe, all that stuff you're supposed to do to help this channel grow, to help get this information out to more people. Having your kids involved in your business is an amazing thing for both the kid and the business. So please listen intently, take notes, and let us know what we can do to support you in getting your kids involved in business. So please have a very Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year, and we'll see everybody in the new year. Welcome to the BizDad podcast, and welcome back for you, Todd Dexheimer.
I think a lot of people struggle with it because they're not that type of mindset, and they just don't have what it takes to be a successful entrepreneur. Yeah. There's a lot of people that can own their own business and be self-employed. That's one thing. But to truly own a business that's successful, that you can run without you, that can be a true business with growth potential, all that kind of stuff, I think it takes a special mentality, a special mindset. It's just a different person. So I think that the vast majority of the country is just not that. And maybe will never be. And I don't know how you harness it. Maybe you can teach it. One thing I try to do with my kids is, instead of asking them what they're going to do when they grow up, instead of talking about jobs, I talk like they're going to own a business. So I instead of saying, what are you going to do when you grow up? I say, what kind of business are you going to own when you grow up? That's how I phrase the question. I don't talk about, hey, think about going and getting a job. What kind of job do you want? I say, what kind of business are you going to run? Hey, let's think about some business opportunities that you could get into to make a little bit of money. My daughter's super busy. She's 15, but it's, hey, what kind of business do you want to run right now? And my son, he wants to start a landscaping company. So we're talking about that. We're talking about how he can start his landscaping company. He's only 11 years old. What do you do? You can't start hauling logs and setting up retaining walls. You're 11 years old, right? But you can mow some lawns, you can rake some leaves, you can shovel some sidewalks, like things like that. We don't talk about the job, we talk about the business. And who knows? We'll see how that turns out. I don't know. Right? Again, it's hard to say. Is that going to make them entrepreneurs? Maybe not.
What sort of conversations do you have around, what do they think you do for a living? And what kind of conversations do you have around your business with your kids?
Yeah, so my daughter at 15 understands what I do. So she knows, and we talk about it. She listens to my videos. I do a lot of social media videos. She doesn't listen to my podcast because it's long form, and I just don't think that it doesn't interest her. But she does listen to my videos that end up going on Instagram and stuff like that. So she understands. She knows what I do. We talk about it here and there. It's not like our daily conversation or anything. Yeah. My son knows what I do, but I don't think fully understands it. So like just the other day, I picked his buddy up from his house with my son, and there's an abandoned house next to theirs. And Carson is, my dad's going to buy that house. That's what he does, is flips houses. And I'm like, that's not what I do. So he doesn't quite understand it. Yeah. But he's starting to. Actually, a pretty exciting thing is we are buying an apartment complex, just over 100 units, about 4 miles from our house, and it's right on the way to a ton of stuff that we do. So it's really close. Nice. We'll be by it a lot, and my son wants to work at it. And so that'll be cool because I'll be able to really show them a little bit more what I do, because most of my properties are all state. They've been to them. I took my son on a trip last, and we went and toured my properties, and he watched me talk with the property management, talk with contractors, and so on. My daughter's toured my properties. She's a little bit busier, so she hasn't done the whole trip with me, but she's toured my properties too. Yeah, we talk about it. We talk a lot more about general things, like being financially responsible. So my daughter earned quite a bit of money babysitting and just other things, and we have invested her money in the stock market, and her and I analyzed the stocks, the companies, and pick those out. And she watches what they're doing, and they'll listen to books here and there with me. They listen to the book Shoe Dog by Phil Knight with me. They love that one. We talk business. So it was funny. My son, this was a couple of years ago, but my son was talking. He's, I'm going to buy a Lamborghini when I grow up. And my daughter's like, that's stupid. I'm gonna own a bunch of rental properties, and then those rental properties will pay for my Lamborghini. And I'm like, that's the right mindset. Just take the Lamborghini out of the formula, but that's the right mindset. Your rental properties, they're going to pay for the things you need
for your lifestyle. So did you learn how to do this from somewhere, or was it just pieced together yourself as you were going through it? Like, what was it that gave you kind of the ideas on how to talk to your kids about this and introduce them to stuff?
Honestly, I learned because I didn't do it. And so my parents never talked about it. The money was the root of all evil. Money doesn't grow on trees. That was the mindset. And again, I love my parents. They're amazing people. So not anything I say isn't trying to bash my parents. They learned from their parents, right? And they meant no harm by what they did, but that's just the mindset, right? Money does grow on trees, by the way. It's made from paper. So paper comes from trees. So money does grow on trees. And I try to teach that to my kids, and I try to teach the abundance mindset. Like, I try to teach my kids, it's not we can't afford this, it's we don't want to afford this. Like, we talk about things, my kids will want to buy things, and I never say, we can't afford that. I always say, guys, come on. That's something I just don't want to buy. That's just a waste of my money. I have better priorities than that. That's how I'll talk. I won't talk about it. Hey, guys, we can't afford that. Even if it's something we can't afford. My kids don't want to buy a super big mansion. Like, I'm not, hey, we can't afford to buy that. It's, guys, I am not going to put $22 million into a house when I can take that money and do something else with it.
Yeah.
Like, that is just not a problem. Oh, look at the pool. Look at all this. Yeah, I get it. It's cool. But that's just not, that's just not for me, guys. So reading books and just listening to podcasts and changing my mindset and just the experiences throughout the years. And I just want to try to, as much as I can, hand it down to my kids and allow them to hear it and see it. And they're going to have to make their own decisions themselves, right? Maybe they end up doing the exact opposite that I do. But at least I try to do my part. And from there, they're going to be adults one day and they're going to have to make their own decisions. One of my favorite books, and I think this should be on every kid's both listen to and read list when they're probably a teenager, 18 to 18, depending on how mature they are, is How to Win Friends and Influence People. I think is one of the most sound business relationship books. Business is all about sales and just relationships, and you need to really learn that. And so there's two books that I think are probably some of the best business books. That's How to Win Friends and Influence People. That's how to communicate properly with people, which is massive in business. And then the other book is How to Listen and Negotiate with People. And that is Chris Voss's Never Split the Difference book. And so I think those two, you can pull so many lessons out of them. And those are great foundations to then dive deeper into those. But those are excellent, and they'll really teach you how to be a good business owner, because it's all about listening and it's all about communication. The other book that I think everybody should read, whether you're a Christian or not, is the book of Proverbs in the Bible. There's a lot of good business and life lessons in that book. I think the whole Bible is great, but I think that book in the Bible is an excellent business book.
No, I completely agree. Like it boggles me when I think about if all of us were to actually follow what Christ is asking us to do, like how much more sane the world would be, how much more business would run well, and how much more families would run well, and all the stuff. Again, we're in a fallen world, and it is what it is. That's where we are. We just have to do what we can to not be that fallen with it.
Yeah, I'm a Christian, and it's my faith, and I trust in God and Jesus. But I think whether you are a Christian or not, the Bible, the lessons in the Bible are foundational for business and life. And when you look at the lessons in the Bible, most books use the lessons in the Bible in their books, intentional or not. They've already been written in that book. And so it's a foundational book to me for anybody to read I want everybody to be a Christian, but it doesn't. Again, I think it's a great book to read, whether you're a Christian or non-Christian, because there's really a ton of great lessons in the book. We set our life up to where we're active and we're moving and we're doing and we're creating and we're challenging. And so TV is really not, it's just not something that's in our life. And I think, I don't want to sound like I've got it figured out, but to me, that's something I did figure out. And it's something that I think that more people should really challenge themselves to do. And that includes, by the way, your phone and your computer and social media and all those distractions too, because you can turn off the TV and you can then plug into your phone and it's the same thing.
Yeah.
It's the same thing. If you're looking at Facebook and TikTok and all that kind of stuff, it's the same thing as watching TV. You're still mindlessly distracted and you're influenced. And I think kids and adults today are so influenced. And by the way, it's not just today. It's been like this for a long time. But they're so influenced by other people and by their values and beliefs. And if you believe that you are the 5 people who you hang around with, most of us hang around with MSNBC, Fox News, CNN, whatever, sitcoms, whatever you listen to, whatever you watch. Most people, that's who they hang out with the most. They hang out with the boob tube. They hang out with the social media, with the TikTok videos. And if that's who you're spending your most time with, that's who you're becoming. You're becoming who you're influenced by. Is that really who you want your kids to become? Is that really who you want to become? So if you want to become somebody better than where you're at, if you want your kids to be better, to be successful, to enjoy life, to be positive, to be loving, then set them up for that and make sure you're not setting them up for the opposite, right? Make sure you're not filling their brains with garbage. And I think that's what's on TV for the most part. You can be selective, certainly, and good for you if you're being very selective. I think you should be, especially with your kids, but even with yourself. But yeah, we've done it intentionally, unintentionally, is we've set our life up to not really have the time to sit there and watch TV and be influenced by garbage.
No, I completely agree. And as you're saying that, it popped into my head, like your intentionality behind how you talk about money is very similar, right? Like everybody, especially in the business world, like time is money. But yet we won't say that same thing as we're sitting down to a Netflix show, right? This time is money as well. What are you doing with this time? Like we choose not to spend our dollars in certain areas because we want to spend them other areas. We choose not to spend our minutes in certain areas because we want to spend them in other areas that are more valuable. Again, like the minutes spent at the lake are better than the minutes spent at in front of the TV.
Oh my gosh.
Right? The minutes spent at the baseball field are better than the minutes spent at, again, on my phone surfing Facebook shorts or whatever the case may be. So I think that it's wise when you look at it in that realm and say, look, like I'm spending all of these minutes doing all these things. Like I'm a Dave Ramsey coach, and one of the things that he always talks about is every dollar has a job, right? Every minute has a job too. What are you giving that minute to? What are you giving that dollar to? What are you giving that minute to? Let's choose where they go and make sure it's a wise choice on both fronts. So I love it. I love that you're doing it. I love that's where your brain is at with that.
I would love to leave your audience with a challenge, and I think this will prove extremely valuable if they're willing to take me up on the challenge. Is I would challenge you to take the next 90 days. It's a long time, 90 days. If you really can't do 90 days, do 60. But I would challenge you to do 90 days and don't allow anybody in your house to watch any TV. Don't allow anybody in your house to scroll on any social media channels for the next 90 days and see what happens. And instead of watching TV, play a game with your kids. Go for a walk with your kids, throw a baseball with your kids, whatever it is. No TV, no scrolling on social media, no YouTube videos, no Netflix, none of that for 90 days and see what happens. I think you'll be super pleasantly surprised.
I am stoked to talk to Dennis Callan. really looking forward to chatting with him. So what do your kids think about what you do? Like, how do they process? What sort of involvement do you have them in what you do? How aware are they of what you do?
They're pretty aware. They love the real estate side of it. The two older ones are now getting into the finance side of it. And we have my son, my middle guy loves like being in business. He just had a watermelon stand with another bike in the neighborhood. They each made $100 in 3 hours. I sent an email to my whole neighborhood, like on our Facebook page. I was like, thank you. Like people were just giving him, I'll keep the change. Here's a 10. I was like, geez, you guys are unbelievably, I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing that he's making that much. But yeah, they understand that you have to work for things. They know that I put in my time, but they also know that today when one needed to be at camp, one needed to be at swim practice, and the other needed to be at field hockey practice, all at 9 o'clock, and their mom is a nurse and nurse anesthetist, has a great job, but can't do that. As a business owner, I have that flexibility amazing. And that resonates that I'm at all their stuff. Sometimes their mom can't be there. So I think the business owner thing is something that I've put in their heads and, hey, go get a normal job if you need to, but starting out, as soon as you can, figure out the way that made that passive income and get control of your time and work for. I think that's the piece that sticks with them the most. My middle guy says he'd love to take over the mortgage business, and they just pick which houses that they want. Like, no, Dad, I want this house and I want this house. Like, okay, they're yours someday, but for now they're mine, and they understand that if I need them to come help me clean out, and it's gross sometimes, and normally I have my guys do that, but we're in there every once in a while just to keep them accountable. Hey, this isn't just easy. We got to go clean this house out or whatever it is.
Yeah, and it shows that there is a lot that goes into it, right? Showing the work ethic that is needed to go through all of this stuff, right? So if my math is correct, your two oldest were like 7 and 10 or so when you did open your own brokerage, right? So they were semi-old enough to see what it was like when you were working for somebody else. Can they tell a difference between you working for somebody else versus you owning your own brokerage, or not really?
No, because I own net branch, probably what you were running, like you mentioned. So I own net branches of other companies. So I just got paid off for P&L. I never reported anymore. I just didn't, I had to give a piece to the higher up. So I always, in their eyes, I owned the business. They didn't really know that my name was on the sign and everything. They probably didn't really know the difference until just recently where, hey, I don't even know if I told them. I just said, I opened another company and they got some shorts out of it. And they really realized that it was what the difference was before. But that they're into it. They love the real estate. I had them. I taught her, have her listening to Rich Dad Poor Dad. And now at 15, I think she can grasp that. And I think it's going to be a good segue for, because she's going to see me as the business owner and some of the stuff. And while her mom is a nurse anesthetist and does well financially, I think she'll be able to use that as, okay, this is the difference. I like this about that job. I don't like this. And I think that's going to be a great intro to start thinking ahead for her.
So what conversations do you have if your oldest is like reading Rich Dad Poor Dad now? Do you have conversations about it, or is it just, okay, let me know if you have questions? Like, what's the intentionality behind that?
It's in the summer reading list because she just turned 15 and I mentioned it to her. So we haven't bridged it yet. But I think I'm going to listen. We'll go chapter by chapter and I'll listen to it at the gym to refresh my memory. And then I had the girlfriend listen to it because she's big pharma and always that same thing, W-2. And she would crush it on her own. Like she runs a huge brand and would be great at marketing on her own. That's just too big for her mind to wrap around right now. And she's got the golden handcuffs in it, but she's on board like buying properties with me and things like that. So for my daughter, that's the plan, is read along with her and then trying to talk to a 15-year-old while she's great. I had to choose my days. Make sure she's in the mood to sit with it. But I think she's going to be really open to that, and that kind of opened her eyes to, all right, this is how we do it. And this is how we put the pieces together to build kind of the base and then build upon that.
How did you approach the conversations with the real estate side of the house? If both of them are interested, that's lovely, right? But it doesn't always work out that well. So how did you get those, especially your two older ones, to be on board with going into the real estate and seeing all of it? And was there any pushback, or was it mostly they were already interested just by you exposing them to it?
There's, besides the they'll always give me a little, Dan or whatever. But they just know that's like a little test to see if, and they know I'm not going to break, just like we talked about earlier.
Yeah.
So, but then they just get right in line and they're doing their thing.
Yeah.
My son has always had the mentality, the business. Like we did the whole Sedona to Grand Canyon and all Lake Powell and finished, we did Zion and then we finished in Vegas, which was gross. I've all seen the most beautiful places in the earth. And then we see Vegas. But I forget what hotel we were at, but they had a huge lazy river and they charged an exorbitant. We were reading in the things like before we went down, they charged like whatever, $75 or some crazy number to rent the tube to go in the lazy river. And we went to, there was a convenience store across the street and we bought the tubes ahead of time and we took them over. And my son said, "Hey Dad, do you think if I bought extra tubes, I could sell it to people at the lazy river?" And that was his own idea. And he sold that. And you should have seen him coming, like he would stand a little outside where you buy the tubes that was selling people. And then they could get them and fill there for a couple. And he would come back, "Got another one." And he would just be so excited. So he has that entrepreneurial mindset in him. So I just got to stoke that flame and continue to have him work on that and just like the lemonade thing. So yeah, it doesn't take, there's not much of a conversation. I do the numbers with them a little bit and, hey, this is what the rents are. This is what my expenses are, so they can see a P&L and kind of start putting that together. But yes, as far as just sitting down and really like, I do it on the fly. It's not, hey, let's go break down an hour of this and get into a P&L or something like that. We just have those conversations when we have time in the car.
Yeah. Okay. See, I wish that, so I don't know, I hear that a lot from entrepreneurs, like, "Oh, I've been entrepreneurial since I was a kid." And then I hear that from some of the guys I'm talking to where their kids like yours are already entrepreneurial. And I often wonder, like, I missed a boat somewhere, because I really wish that I would have known like some sort of, and I can't tell necessarily whether it's exposure, like some kids are just exposed to it in some way, shape, or form when they're younger, which is how that spark gets fired up. Because for me, I wasn't exposed to anything entrepreneurial growing up. There was zero happening on that side. I was exposed to a lot of military stuff because both of my parents were in the military. So what do you know? I joined the military. Like, shocking, right? And for me, I'm always trying to narrow in what it is. And is there a formula that I could put together for my kids to get them down a path that makes sense? Because but in the grand scheme of things, they are going to choose their own path. Not everybody is, of course, set to be an entrepreneur and try to work through the struggles of running a business and having employees and hiring and firing and all of that stuff. Not everybody is down for that roller coaster of a ride. What would you say you've noticed, since your middle West seems to be the one who is more that direction, even though your oldest still is interested? What kind of things do you think has happened as those two have been growing up that has led West to be more that direction versus your oldest?
It's funny, like my daughter, she's like now obviously 15-year-old girl, she wants the Lululemon, so she knows. So she's trying to figure out her ways of babysitting and things like that, of how she can make money. And that's newer for her because she's wants the clothes and I'm not the one. I took her to the store the other day because her mom usually takes care of that stuff. But the makeup store, and I was like, "Holy cow, this is what $100." The bag that we left was like this much with a couple of things. And I was like, "Holy cow." So she knows that she's not going to be getting that stuff and she needs to work for it. So that's something that kind of was put in me. I was always a caddy when I was younger and my dad had me out there 8th grade summer, bags on and dying, going up the hilly course that we belonged to. And then with my son, I don't know if it's nurture or nature, but it's, I think he sees how he does it. He likes to be around me. My mom, being with him a lot, she says he tells her a lot of stuff and then she'll relay it back to me. Don't say maybe he doesn't think it, but he says he thinks what you do is great. And she just said, has all these great things to say that he's saying to her. And then she feeds them to me and says, you tell him what he said. But you can't break that confidence barrier or that trust barrier that she's not supposed to be saying. But it's funny when you were mentioning how when you growing up, you didn't have that. I was thinking back in my day of if I had that or not. And I remember the one thing where it was probably the first time I was ever little bartering. I went to Catholic school growing up and the nuns would make you bring a place, like you would eat at your desk in your classroom. There wasn't a cafeteria or anything. And you would have a cloth placemat that you were supposed to bring with your lunch. And you would put it down and you would have your lunch. And this guy next to me, Joe, always forgot it. He was always getting in trouble for forgetting his placemat. So I started bringing him an extra placemat and giving it to him for that. And I said, Joe, I'll give you this placemat. And after football practice once a week, there would be, or every day it would come, but I was like, once a week, you have to buy me an ice cream from the ice cream man that comes and sells. And I was like, I remember that now. I was like, that was probably my first entrepreneurial endeavor of
solid barter
placemat for an ice cream cone from the ice cream man after football.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a solid barter for sure. Yeah. I saw a buddy of mine, and back when I went to my 20th reunion, I saw him again, but he was always a business kid. In high school, he had his own business. He was installing people's stereo systems and all sorts of stuff. And I always thought it was cool because he had what appeared to be a nice car. He had money all the time. And I was like, what the heck is this kid doing that I'm not? But I never went down that. I never asked the questions. I never chased it down. And then it wasn't until after multiple jobs in the military and I started doing what I'm doing now, where I'm like, I really like this kind of entrepreneur stuff and chasing things down and building and growing and trying to figure it all out. And for me, it's one of those classic, if I'd have known then what I know now type of situations. But if you're not ready for it, then you're not going to know it then. You have to wait until you're ready for it. And here, it took me a while to get ready for it, but now I'm excited about it. And there's something else you were saying that kind of made me wonder, and this is more just what pops in my brain, and that's the beauty of where we're at, is I often wonder, and I ask dads all the time on this podcast, do you feel like you push too much? Are you afraid of pushing too much to your kids to where they run away from what you're trying to show them, as opposed to running with and being excited about it? So I'm going to ask that question, and I'm going to tell you what popped in my brain. But how much balance do you have there in exposing them to the various different things that you're doing in the mortgage and real estate side of the house versus forcing them to go down that path?
Yeah, it's funny you ask that, because my daughter turned 5 a couple weeks ago, and I wrote her a long letter, just handwritten letter, and proud of her, because she's awesome, a triple threat, great athlete, great in school, great personality. And one of the things I wrote in there is that I push her as hard as I do because I know she can handle it.
Yeah.
And I specifically wrote in there, that's not just dad talk, because a lot of dads will say that to their kids, but maybe not down really believe it. Right? And you hear, so if their kids aren't whatever is great in school or something like that, they're just, you can do it. And maybe they have doubts in their mind that kid can actually do it. But there is no doubt that for me, when I say that to my daughter, that the person that she is, that she can do whatever she wants business-wise at on the field or whatever it is, she can go as far as she wants to. And that's why I push her, and I want her working out in the summer, because as a sophomore, she's going to start field hockey this year, and on track, she's going to do great. And then academically, she's 4.something, which blows my mind. Over 4.0 GPA. I'm like, I was not the student. Where'd that come from? And she does it all on her. That's one thing, knock on wood, that somehow my kids, I do not get on them for homework. They just go and do it. I don't know if it's setting the standard early, but they just go do their thing. And I get very blessed with how that's all worked out. And then the next one just sets the standard for the next one. Next one, and they know that after dinner, this is the routine. And I think that the structure and the routine really helped in my life, because when we got divorced, they would come home and say, it's chaos at mom's house. And here we like the structure of routine, and we know what's next and what's next. I think that made a big difference. We found our routine after the divorce. And I apologize, I went on there a little far. I lost your second part of that question. The forcing. The forcing, again, I don't force too much. I force things for them to be good people and do well at school and try as hard as they can on and off the courts and fields. The forcing of my stuff down there, I'll send them video clips and things like that of Instagram reels there, just motivational stuff.
Yeah.
And some of it will be business related to the older two who have phones. And then I'll share stuff with my my youngest one. If we're sitting next to him, I have them be listening to something, but I'm not really forcing my personal stuff just on them.
Okay. Yeah. This is what was going on in my brain as we were going through all of that is, I want my kids to have a positive view of what I'm able to do. So the last couple of days, my oldest 2 kids have been sick. They had 103 fevers, not feeling great. You just wanted to be around dad. And I work from home. So it worked out well. I just told some folks, hey, I'm going to be with my kids the majority of the day. I'm still going to make some phone calls. Some of them, even if they're video calls, I'll probably have a kid on my chest. No big deal. Because, well, I own the business and I work from home. So this is the way it is. But at the same point, that they feel that and they see that I'm able to do some of these things. And I try to have those conversations like, I work from home and I do business so that I can have more time with you guys. But I fear that, so when they look at me, they think I'm working all the time. I'm at the computer all the time. But they don't realize that mommy's gone more than I am, right? Because mommy goes to work, like she's out of the house. So I've recently started to wonder, and I've been thinking that I want to buy an office space, like a small one, so I can have my own office and go somewhere a couple times a week just to get out and have a little bit more focus. Then I'm sure that there's been more than one time on this call that like you can hear the kids in the background because they're always there and it's always part of the life, which I absolutely love. But at the same point, I'm afraid that me being on this computer all the time and them watching me on the computer all the time might push them away from this type of work because they're like, all I remember of my dad is he was on his computer all the time. Instead of remembering all those times that I was able to just be with them when they were sick or we go have playtime in the backyard in the middle of the day when, I don't know. I'd love to just pass that over to you and get your thoughts on what your thoughts are on that conundrum in my brain.
Yeah, no, it's tough because you think you're doing a great job and you think you're putting in that time and you'll ask the question, hey, do you think I'm around? And like, we'll have that conversation in the car. Mm-hmm. That's usually when we get our one-on-one time. Yeah. It's just a car to sports or things like that. And you can capture them for a little bit. And yeah, it's just like a dagger to your heart sometimes. Yeah. Like, yeah, no, you work a lot. And I think I've been cognizant of it or when they'll come in and like, hey, Dad, you want to throw football or something like that? And it's at 3:30 in the afternoon. I'm like, oh, but I'd love to. But they think because I'm home, that means I'm not working. And I'm like, but it's 3:30, but 5 o'clock or what? We'll find some time today, but I just can't do it right now. Yeah. And you see them like shrug and walk away. And they're just like, oh my God, it just rips your heart out. Yeah. But there's got to be a balance there. And I try to explain that, hey, listen, I got to work now if I'm going to come to your game later today. Or we try to balance it that way. But no, it's tough the work from home thing. They think, especially with me as a business, I'm done, but you own the business, you can do it. I'm like, I can, but I'm responsible for people to get, they want to buy their house next week and things like that. So I got to be around. And I think I'm very good at being balanced, but when you share that from them, you're just like, oh, that sucks.
Today, I am stoked to talk to a fellow pilot, a fellow dad, Brett Harmeling. As your kids are growing up, what kind of intentionality do you have in introducing them to like the business side of what you do and showing them that parallel between family and business and how that all works? And I'll pause there. What kind of interest do you have in exposing your kids to that sort of stuff?
10 out of 10 because I had to figure it out. My dad, the last thing I wanted to do was be stuck in a warehouse brokering cheese for a living. That's where I say, and almost felt guilty for not wanting to carry on the family baton. Yeah. At the same time, and I'm like, dude, I need to be around people and energy, and that's what charges me up. And speaking on stages and going on podcasts and getting uncomfortable, all these things like charge me up. And I think the best thing that you can do for your family, I don't even understand how people don't bring their family into their business in today's day and age. And you know what I think about I always think about what they used to do like when they were Native Americans or back in the day, like when there was like Roman Empire. What did those families look like and do? Because they never broke up. They were highly protected, highly sophisticated. They had family crests. Who has a family crest now anymore? Yeah. Nobody, because it's almost like you don't want to make it because what if the family breaks up and then crest? There's no family crest. Like, why is there not? It should be like, this is creating a whole legacy and heritage for your family. It's evaporated. There's no even, I don't know if you felt this, even people's love for America has softened. Yeah. It's real America. And more people are oh, it's good, but I love America. I'm a patriot, but at the same time, there's still that energy shift that softening that's been taking place. And so what is it about that we've lost in our modern traditions that has escaped us from the rituals of the past that we've given up on because they worked? All the inventions and sciences and things that were invented a long time ago are still being used today. Why is there nothing new being invented? Really fundamentally invented.
Yeah. Yeah. That's an interesting way of looking at it. Yeah.
there's things, just pick one, like the laws of physics. You know, long ago that was like discovered.
Yeah.
Like how there's no new laws of energy, or there's no.
Yeah, and if there are, they're hiding it rather well. I tell you what. I love having my kids be a part of all sorts of the stuff with the business side of the house. And it's hard for me to separate the two at this point because, like, I homeschool. My kids are always around. Two of them have already shown up on this call a couple times. So I want them to be as involved as they want to be. So when you said you're 10 out of 10 looking forward to having the family inside of the business, or at least introducing them into the business, what is your vision behind that? What sort of inclusion are they actually doing, and what would be your long-term vision for your kids inside of the business?
So with the advancement of AI and hyper effective and efficient learning, let's be real. Nobody, like when my kid's 18, he's not going to go pay $120,000 for a 4-year school.
Yeah.
It's not going to happen. There's no chance. Now, I love institutional grade education. I think like that community, and I played golf in college, so being a part of a team was like really cool. I was in a fraternity, so like those experiences are like best experiences of my life. But like the world is shifting so rapidly, and now we're learning things they're saying like 10 to 100 times faster. Yeah. Because we don't have to think about them. They're in our sphere before we even have to learn how to do the thing. Like I remember when I was like, and I'm 36 again, but when I was even in high school, they're like, yeah, like you guys might be one of the last classes that actually have to use these calculators. Because it's like, why would you use the calculator if you're never going to use it? You know what I'm saying? But back then it was like, oh, just in case, or still just encasing it. And so it's just the way that I see it happening is the word education in Latin, Adam, means to induce or bring out the best gifts in someone and then to make them viable. So I plan to educate my kid in like a Latin way in terms of helping him discover his superpowers and then doing more of that, however that looks. And the integration piece is huge on that. Okay, cool. You're really good at architecting things. Do you like metal or do you like nature? And it all comes down to creative questioning. And the biggest challenge that I'm up against, Adam, is finding the community. I believe that families should thrive in tribes. And so outside of GoBundance, so I'm like my wife and I are hyper serious right now and focused on finding the best place to actually raise our kids. Because I grew up in a little Dutch village. There wasn't a lot of, I think if I look at my friends and the ones that have taken their lives or gone off bad paths, like it's because they've gotten involved in, it's usually a friend. How do I say this without being an right? It's usually a friend that introduces your kid to a bad thing.
Yeah.
And so there's no preventing that other than proximity, right? So the only thing that I can do as a dad is put my kid in the best environment possible so that he is able to navigate those friendships. Because, let's be real, when you're young, the kid who's doing all the crazy stuff is the coolest kid to be around.
Yeah.
But he's also the most dangerous. And so there's this balance, and I don't know how I'm going to handle it yet, but I'm committed to just giving my kid the richest experience of life and family without having them get hurt. Now, as you grow older and you have wisdom and you have the ability to discern and decide and choose, then the game changes a little bit, I think. Yeah. And you can be in places like cities where whatever, if you see it or hear it and you're able to respond versus react. When you're a kid, you don't have these fundamental tools. Now, it's getting better because like people like you and me are teaching our kid at a young age hey, it's okay to cry. It's okay to be emotional. It's okay to be angry. That's a real human thing. It's not a bad thing.
Thank you so much for jumping in today. I am thrilled to be chatting with John Edwin.
I'm a firm believer, get your kids involved in something always, because that competitive nature is what will propel you to success. Now, whether it be competition in sport or just competition against yourself in academia or whatever it is, musicals, whatever that is, have your kids constantly out involved in some type of social setting. For us, it did start out as sports, but it doesn't have to be that way. It can be anything, but always spark that competitive nature, because when it's like anything else, it's the small wins that move the sails in the ship. So when kids are starting out and they're trying something new, even if it's music, if it's a musical instrument. So you start out and you can't just play the piano. You got to learn a note. And then from that, you got to learn a chord. And then from that, you got to learn how to read music. And so it could be a guitar, it could be wrestling. It doesn't matter. It could be boxing. But the point is, it's like getting something where you're starting to see yourself get better, right? Mm-hmm. That builds the confidence. And talking about entrepreneurship, you're not just going to instantly become self-made overnight unless it's maybe Bitcoin or one of these other things that I guess could make you that way. But honestly, if you become successful overnight by mistake, you'll probably lose it.
Yeah. It's just like a majority of lottery winners. Yeah. They don't, they haven't gotten themselves to that point. That's why they go so quick.
You got to have the tools to keep you there and continue to progress.
Yeah, completely agreed. And I'm glad you mentioned the kids, because that was going to be the next place I brought it, was like, how do we, my goal, the same thing, what I tell my boys all the time is that my goal is to raise them to be better men than me, right? So if I can raise them to be better men than me, then I have to represent what a good man looks like, and then show them and admit to my downfalls of where it's at and how to improve them so that they can improve on them early as well. And I also am a strong believer in and it's one of the reasons that you and I are in GoBundance is you surround yourself by like-minded people who are trying to grow and get better as well. So if I can curate the kids that my kids are around, or even the adults that my kids are around that are going to be influencing them in a way that is positive in nature, that is, I want good Christian men surrounding my boys, right? Obviously I have good Christian women as well. I'm not biased in that sense, but by having them surrounded by good Christian men who are striving to be great husbands, great leaders, great dads, and also encouraging other kids like mine to be great husbands, leaders, and dads later on in life, I think is going to be instrumental in their success. What kind of thoughts do you have on the curation of who your kids are surrounded by, not only by you, but like the environment that you put them in? Have you done anything specific or not specific to build the environment around them to encourage what you're actually wanting to produce?
Yeah, definitely. Like we talked about church and youth group, and we talked about different camps and stuff, but also having them, I was lucky enough to have GoBundance in their lives at an early age. 7 years ago, we started doing different FamBundance stuff. And if you guys don't know what FamBundance is, it's a great place for kids to not just learn how to live in community, but also to learn financial literacy. FamBundance teaches goal setting. It teaches a lot of different things that normal school does not, right? My kids were heavily involved in FamBundance for years when they were younger. And it was interesting because literally 7 years ago, we were at the McCarthy's, and I forget who encouraged it, but somebody did encourage the kids to read Rich Dad Poor Dad. So all three of my kids read that at an early age. Like Caleb's 15 now. So he was 8 when he read it, and Sylvie was 11 and Luke was 10. And then it was interesting to get their perspective after reading that book. I sat them down and I had them teach me what assets and liabilities are, and, all these really cool things that young people have no idea. And actually most adults don't even understand what a liability and an asset is. I then summarized the book, and we've been heavily involved in FamBundance. And actually even Luke, now 20, he's a part of a GoPod. He was on a GoPod last night. Talk about curating your kids and setting them up for success. Sure. We're really big into that. And I forget the name of it. It used to be Go Dudes. They just changed it because there are females involved. But these young people, man, it's awesome. And Luke's been on already two Go Cruise with GoBundance. Yeah, he was just down in Austin at the AES. And he was also in Vermont with me. And they asked him to be a part of, I think, the one in the fall, but he's playing soccer. But then Sylvie and Caleb will follow suit as well. So like you're saying, to have our kids around other successful men, women, and families is just so amazing. And then also sports teaches you so much about winning and losing.
Yeah. Something I struggled on in the sports side is I need to do a good job of preparing myself mentally for working through, because my oldest loves golf. That's his thing, but he's also a perfectionist. And if you're a perfectionist, playing golf is probably a tormenting type of game when you're a perfectionist. Just about anything is, but golf seems to be like at the top tier of dreadfulness when you're a perfectionist. So I need to do a better job of showing up for him when we're on the golf course and I'm being his caddy and his dad at the same time, to allow him to make those mistakes, to allow him to be upset about a shot. Because I keep trying to balance this being a dad versus being a caddy. What hat am I wearing at the moment to ensure that I'm representing myself or representing my best self to him at the times that he needs it. But also when I get when he plays on a couple team ones, and it's okay, I don't know the coach enough. I don't know like the influence that the other kids are having. And it's such a struggle for me to say, okay, I want to encourage the right people around him, but also the world is the world, and he's going to be exposed to all sorts of different things. And saying all that to selfishly ask a question of what kind of conversations do you have after those sports matches or after they've been exposed to things that are not in line with what you want them to be, what you want to represent? How do you have conversations about what they're seeing versus what the expectations are of them? I know that your son, your oldest son, Luke, was a part of Cutco. I bought some Cutco from him. Like, I ran in the family. So what have been your conversations with your kids behind what you do as far as business, behind like entrepreneurship, behind building? Obviously, you talked about they read 7 years ago, they read Rich Dad Poor Dad. So they've been on this path for a little while with you. So what sort of intentional conversations have you had with them about your business, and what sort of exposure do they have to what you do as an entrepreneur?
Tons. So we've never stopped since they were little. Our kids they would always be going with me to the gym when they'd have a day off, or if it was a Saturday and I'm going in, they would come to the gym with me. Cool thing is dad owned an MMA gym, right? And there was fighters everywhere. And that's cool. It's not like they're going into an office cubicle. No knock on anybody who does that. It just wasn't like that. And there would also be like kids MMA. So other kids would be there and they'd be learning ground control and some striking and some different things. But yeah, I always would bring my kids down to the gym with us. When Christine and I would be doing flips, as little as they were, we put little hard hats on them. We take them through, demoed out houses, introduce some contractors, show them what was happening, take them to the before, the middle, the after, so they could see all those different creations that we did in progress. Christine and I still to this day take our kids to closings when we're buying properties, when we're selling properties. We take them through walkthroughs. If I'm going to look at let's say somebody's selling a 15 property portfolio, I'll try and take one of my kids or even one of my friends' kids. We've taken our friends' kids to multiple of these things too, to open their eyes up too. And we'll walk through properties. I'm like, all right, what are you guys seeing? You tell me. So we've always been involved. My wife's a realtor. She'll take our kids on listing appointments and all that. She's, if I get the listing, you get $100 at closing. So like the kids love to do that. And then more recently, she's been sitting down with our older two and going through like the P&Ls of our different properties that we own. And so we're constantly having our kids involved in our businesses. And listen, whether they end up going into real estate or doing the different types of businesses that we're in, at least they're equipped, because one day they're going to get left with it.
Yeah, for sure. And just having the exposure in and of itself is enough to open their eyes to something and create, again, that different level of a wireframe for them to look through life with and to see it. Have they been like at all employed by you, if you will? Like, do they do some work?
No, that's a thing that a lot of people do. And there's some type of, I think, tax benefits to it. But no, we haven't done that. Maybe in the future we'll do it. But no, we haven't done any quote unquote employment other than just little incentives on, hey, if you go with mom to this listing and if she gets it, you'll get X amount of dollars. We have had them actually invest in some syndications with us. So Christine and I are invested in probably like 10 different syndications, and we'll write up a little contract. And actually, I think Luke's been the only one, but we were doing a flip and he had some money on the side. And I'm like, hey, we didn't need it, but I'm like, hey, if you invest a certain amount, you'll get a little percentage of what the profit's going to be. And we'll write up a contract and he'll sign it and we'll sign it. But like with the syndications, it's like, all right, if you put $1,000 into this, we'll throw 500 on top and we'll put it in. And as the money comes in, you'll get your dividends. And we've done stuff like that, which is fun.
Yeah, what a wonderful ability to expose kids to that sort of thing. I try to think to myself where I would be if I had learned some of this stuff when I was a teenager, or if somebody had exposed me to some of this stuff as a teenager, where, how different my life would have been. But at the same point, I'm pretty happy with the way things turned out with the wife and kids that I have. And it's just, man, oh man, what I do, I wish that I would have learned a lot of this sooner. What sort of questions have the kids been asking you? Do the kids go to you and say, hey, what is this part of the business? Do any one of them like have a little bit more of a business mind and are asking a lot more questions than the others? And how have you encouraged that thought process?
That's a great question. I think all three of them are very interested, but they're also into their own things right now between school and other activities. Yeah, I don't. Sylvie, she's, like I said, she just graduated high school. She's waitressing at a really cool little bar restaurant, and Caleb's lifeguarding, and Luke's actually, he might be taking an internship with Dane in the financial world, where Dane is managing family offices. So that would be a great exposure for him. But as far as like questions, no, usually I have some answers here, but we go over things with them as we're doing different projects. And we're buying different properties, or we've recently done a 1031 exchange, and we're right now in the middle of a 1031 exchange. So we're exposing them to like, hey, here's a tax benefit that you can also use in the future to continue to trade up in real estate, just like anything else. And so you can elude these taxes if you just continue along this path on a 1031 and continue to grow your portfolio. But as far as specific questions, I can't think of any.
Have there been any ways that like you had tried to expose them that failed miserably, like they did not take to at all?
I don't think so. I don't. I'm trying to think of it. Again, I guess with Luke, I connected him with my buddy Mike DeHaan, who's in my champion pod. And I thought it would be a great thing for Luke to get into wholesaling. And he's been doing cold calls recently for Mike. And he absolutely hates it. I think that it's been a total failure. And it's funny, but it's good to at least try things, because I'm like, hey, Luke, learn how to get off-market deals. Like, this could be a way for us to do business together. Like, you find these deals, we'll fund them, we'll work out a partnership, but it just didn't. Okay, so that, I would say that failed pretty good.
I am super thrilled to talk to John Laney, a fellow military veteran. What is your conversation with your kids about what you're doing as far as business goes, and like the conversations of, okay, I know we've been living here for 3 years and now we're moving back to Oregon. Like, how are those conversations going with your kids now? They're a little bit older than they were when you just like, they're okay with, okay, we're just going down to Mexico. Hey, dad does this type of business now as we're moving up to here. What are the conversations like with them?
Two conversations. So business-wise, so we'll get to that next. So the family conversations, it's tough, man, because they have integrated into Mexican community. Like, they are bicultural and bilingual, and they nearly pass. They're also, my wife's Bolivian, so they look Mexican too. So they can walk down the street and pass for culturally, they're fully ingrained. So it's hard. It's going to be hard, really hard. It's going to take, 4 years ago, it took a couple of years for them really to feel integrated into this community. And it's going to be a tough transition for them to get integrated into our neighbor community. Fortunately, we've got family, friends, our church is there. So we do have at least a leg in to that community. Business, I don't know, man. I don't know. It's really tough. I've tried to help them understand what I'm doing. What is dad doing when he's up in his office on the computer? Is he just like goofing around watching YouTube videos? What is he doing? What does he have to? And I've tried to connect what I'm doing to our desire to have a little house in the country on a couple acres. And for the hours that I work, like, we are getting closer to that goal. Like, we need to, as a realtor, I need to sell 13 houses this year in order to get to that goal. And this work that I'm doing on my Facebook profile is helping me hopefully sell a house. I don't know. I don't know if they get it yet.
Okay.
Hopefully they will eventually, but I don't see that they've embraced what I am doing as a business yet. They get the idea of, like, dad goes away to work. Dad drives away and then comes back and brings money to mom. But I don't think they get the connection. Dad's on the computer, and that generates money, hopefully directly or indirectly.
Yeah, I think that's one benefit so there's this tiny little desk right here next to me where my kids do their schoolwork, right? And they get to hear some of these conversations. They get to see some of these things, like, oh, dad is actually doing work. I know, like, earlier today, my son came in and he's 9 and he looked at me I don't remember, I was doing something on, I had Crexy open or something, looking at a deal or something. And I said, what are you doing? And I said, I'm working. And he said, you're staring at the computer type of thing. Yeah, I know, but that's work, right? This is what I'm doing. And that's what they always seem to think, is staring at the computer. But it opens up a lot of conversations to be able to say, hey, this is what goes on. This is where it's at. And that's where go back to all the way back to the beginning of our conversation of letting them be able to see what I'm doing has been a lot of fun. And they're still pestering me about the fact that I have not started I want to start a vending machine business with them, where we kind of put a little vending machine, teach them about supply and demand and all this stuff. And I've got a couple vending machines already picked out, and there's some people just not responding to me on Facebook Marketplace. So if you're one of those people, please respond to me. I'm a real person. I want to buy your machines. But I love to try to have those conversations with them. And it's not something that I ever thought that I'd be having those conversations about, because business was so new to me and saving money was so new to me when I started having kids that it was like, okay, now how the heck do I figure out how to teach these kids these things? And I have that intentionality behind it. Now that you are out of the military and I'm asking you these questions, what are your thoughts on like truly involving them in business or in the real estate when you get up there? Okay, let's go look at this house that I'm going to be selling and that type of stuff. Do you have any intent or thought about involving them in that side of it?
Yeah, I'd love to involve them in that. They've helped for some of our fix and flips, junking in the house, clearing out a house. I definitely want them to be involved in this. But yet I balance that with the dad that's like pushing them too hard to be involved. And I've got a lot of friends with adult kids that have tried to bring their kid into their business. Mm-hmm. Hey, why don't you be my operations guy or whatever? Tried to bring him in. And it hasn't worked quite as well as the dad has hoped. And so I like your comment more as caught than taught. Basically, they observe a whole lot more than you are teaching them. I don't want to put too much hopes on teaching them and forcing them into it, rather creating opportunities for if they want to, we're going hanging door hangers and we're paying whatever a month or whatever an hour. And we'd love it if you came with us and you can make some money today or not. And there'd be a bonus if we sell a house based on it.
Yeah. And that's where I think that, that's one of the reasons I actually have this podcast is because I've talked to too many people where they say the same thing about their kids like ran away from the business. And that's another reason why I ask even about our dads, right? Because if we understand why we ran away from what our parents did or why we ran towards what our parents did, it can help us direct our steps to figure out how we can make sure that our kids don't run away from what we're doing, but they run towards what we're doing. Even if it's not running towards because I really just want to do the same type of business stuff my dad does, but it's, no, I understand what he does and I'm going to do this instead. Or I understand and I like what they're doing and I'm not running away from it. It's just I've chosen to go a different direction. Because I would much rather my kids run towards something than run away from something at all stages of life. If they're running away from something, that's way too fear-based for me or I want them running towards something that's exciting to them. And if working with me is not exciting, that's fine. I don't care. But at least it's an option. And a lot of the dads that I've talked to your point of the kids not really wanting to be involved, it is very much, was it being pushed on them or was it not? But also like the ones that I've talked to that seems to have been successful, it was, hey, I was around it. I learned about it. I knew about it, but they told me I wasn't allowed to work in the business until I went out and did something on my own. And then once I went out and did something on my own, maybe it was working for some other company, maybe it's working, but then once you understand you've worked for an employer, then you can come back if you want to and work in the family business. But this isn't a gift to you that dad does this job. It's an opportunity for you to learn, an opportunity for you to grow, but it's not a gift that you just automatically have a seat at the table. That seems to have been a trend.
That's a great point.
Yeah. But my kids, the same thing. I've brought them to a couple different projects on where I want them to go, like things I want them to see in the business. Okay, these are the things that dad does when he's on a computer. I'm buying these things or I'm looking at these projects so that we can flip this. The most recent one I brought them to is this memory care facility we have. Okay, but this place is terrible, right? It needs a lot of work. It was one of those that it felt like when you walked into it that somebody brought their grandma there to die. And that's a sad feeling. Like that is not the type of business that we want to run. And so I told my kids, I said, could you imagine when grandma gets a little bit older, us putting her in this place? No way. And that was his answer. At least no way, Dad. Like I couldn't do that. I said, but wait until we're done because we want to provide an amazing product for people to have wonderful care for their family that can't live at home anymore. So to me, and if they have zero desire to do that, great. But at least they know that what we're doing is making a difference in a lot of people's lives at the same time as I'm sitting in front of a computer. And they can hopefully connect those two things. But what was you mentioned like paying the kids a wage for junking stuff in there. So what kind of conversation do you have with your kids about how much do you pay them? What is your thoughts behind forced child labor? No, it's about that thought process. Is that one of the kids behind you?
Yeah, that is. That's
yay. Tell them we said hi. But what are your thoughts on that? So the engagement of your kids in the labor of the work that I
thanks for asking.
So I want to hear you.
Yeah. So right now they get half of minimum wage. Okay. Which is $7 an hour down here, half of San Diego minimum wage. Okay. However, they're starting to, plus tips. So they do a good job and then every value can get increased by 1.5% or so. Okay. However, they're starting to wank about wanting some more money. They're not quite happy with their wages. So I said, okay, guys, I would love to pay you more. here's how you go to get a pay raise from your boss. Find a time that he's not all scattered. Find a time he's in a good mood. He's calm. Make sure that you've done a good job, whatever it is, go in with your partner or whatever, and then figure out what you're going to give him additional. Hey, I'd like a pay raise, but I can also work one Saturday a week or one Saturday a month or whatever. Add value. Your boss would love to pay $1 million an hour if you added that much value to the company. Yeah, like I'd love to pay my kid $100 an hour, but they just have to find something they do that adds $100 an hour to value, $100 plus. That was we've been talking about this for about the last 3 weeks. They haven't yet approached me, but I am expecting and encouraged that they will, hopefully before this show comes out.
That was what Thaddeus was doing in the background just now. He was coming to talk to you about getting paid more.
He went live on air. And so, yeah, I want them to learn those business negotiations, those business things. And I want them to learn it from me and have failures from me rather than trying to learn it from their boss, who might not be quite as understanding or gentle as their dad is.
Yeah.
But and we constantly have talks about what I am looking for in an employee, what a good employee does, and how you can become that good employee that bosses want to hire and want to tip and want to pay more and want to keep around.
Yeah. I love that. It's a need for kids to have those conversations. I need to be a little bit more intentional about that part of it. I'm very quick, and I've been catching myself doing it a lot. I'm very quick at answering questions instead of asking questions back to try to get them to think a little bit more critically about what's going on. Now, granted, my daughter, she's 1. I'm hesitant to do much more than just help her right now at every step. But the 9 and 5-year-old, it's game on. Like they need to be a little bit more independent. So I need to do a better job of asking them questions. How do you think that actually works? Or how do you think you could get paid more? Or how do you think you could help me get this vending machine, right? What do you like? You want to do this, but it's all on dad right now to knock it out. So what can you do to help out with that? And I would love to get them like on phone calls. Hey, like I'm trying to start a business. I would love to learn more about your vending machine. Like how cool would that be for my 9-year-old to do that? Yeah, taking that note now.
Yeah, and they can do it. Your kids can do far more. Far more. One of my buddies made a comment. Treat your kids like they're 2 years older than they are, because they can certainly do it. Okay, so this weekend, I was at the Mexican rodeo in our town, small town rodeo. And the kid's got to be 6 years old. Maybe he was 7 or 8. I don't know. Maybe it's a short 8-year-old kid. Anyway, he's out there guiding the bulls after they threw off one of anyway, he's out there like guiding bulls, moving cattle. He's got a stick in one hand, like his hat in the other hand, like trying to get bulls going through. I'm like, you know what? And if an 8-year-old could do that, like my kids can empty the garbage.
Yep, for sure.
They can do it just fine. If that kid knows how to get up and do hard work with hard cattle, my kids can certainly do this stuff too.
Yeah, for sure. It is one of those that I feel like we've gotten softer and softer in society, and we're just not aware of what our kids are actually capable of, for sure. And I think I do an okay job with it, but then I see some other kids do something and I'm like, nah, you got to do better, Dad. You got to do better. Like you're not doing good enough. My kid's not out there roping cattle. There's something wrong. I got to figure out what I'm missing. But they really
can't. One thing that we do have a success with is reducing like to an extreme level electronics. When they don't have electronics, their default when they're bored is to go to food and go to electronics. Okay, food or whatever, get a snack. But if you don't have the default of 2 hours of playing Roblox or 2 hours of electronics or whatever, 2 hours of video stuff, then you start to get creative. And like Otis has built a fort out of junk wood in the backyard, and that's a pretty decent fort that he did because he got creative. He will sometimes start to cook something. A couple of days ago, he cooked up French fries. He made really good French fries. Like how many adults can make really good French fries? No, he bakes really good French fries. Oh, a couple of days, he made ice cream.
Nice.
He used we had a big quart of cream, he used all the cream, but that's all right. He found a recipe, and made pretty decent chocolate ice cream that I had been eating. And so when you can get them bored and keep them there until they can figure out something to do, whatever they figure out to do will probably be pretty creative.
Yes.
And when they're using that creative brain and they're working and they're firing those synapses as opposed to just staring at a screen and frying their brain, like they're creating much more than just whatever they built. Like they're giving their brain the ability to learn how to do these things and problem solve and figure out things on their own. And what the heck? My son's got these. I need to figure out some more things for them to do because they love building things. They love to just like my boys and the two of them together would love to go out and build things. So Lowe's has got like these little projects that they could build. So they'll go out and build things together. And too many times I've rescued them in that. But I think that like just buying some scrap wood, I think I need to do and just have them go in the backyard and hammer away and see what they can create, what they could build. And I think they're going to learn a lot more than that than they're going to learn in some gym class at school. Honestly, they're going to it's going to be a lot of fun for them and me. And yes, there's going to be a thumb that gets smashed by a hammer, and that's okay. It's okay to have a thumb smashed by hammers. All of us have had it happen before, and it's not going to kill them. But man, oh man, will it create just a whole different way of thinking. But I love that your kids are out doing that sort of stuff. What kind of conversation did you and your wife have about that? Was that very intentional or was it just natural, especially moving to Mexico? We've just cut down on this. It was easy for us to do and they go off and do stuff.
Yeah, some of it was intentional. I think it was also, we just got tired of every afternoon, the conflict around video games and the conflict around screen time. As you know what, we're not going to deal with it. We'll do it on the weekend. We'll do it once a week. We're not going to do it 7 times a week. And so we just put a shutdown on it. And I don't see a whole lot of good that comes from having a kid on YouTube Shorts, or I don't see a whole lot of good that comes out. It's like junk food. Like it may not, like eating cake may not be bad, but when you eat cake and you don't eat your veggies, like
eventually it's going to be bad.
Yeah. So
it's not bad once, but it's bad every day.
Yeah. So when your time is invested in screens, you miss out on your time. You miss out on the veggies. And so I think we fell into it, and I think we're probably at a much healthier spot now. Just and the kids like read. We've got my wife has a huge library of books, and they'll just pick out. It's funny. They'll just pick out a book. They'll be bored. Like Thaddeus yesterday is reading a math book. He's reading a math book and learning about math. Good for him.
Nice.